Let's start by talking about you. Obviously, you're new to the community. What do parents here need to know about you?
I think the most important thing I'd like people to know is that I'm a father of four. I'm a married person, been married for 28, going on 29 years this September. I've raised four children in Florida public schools. Two, I've been fortunate to get through college, and my youngest twins are high school seniors this year. I understand as a parent the fears and concerns that every parent feels and every child feels because my children and my wife and I share those same concerns.
Yeah, talk a little bit about your experience in law enforcement and
Sure.
where that comes in.
I've been a police officer for 22 years now. I worked in municipalities in the city of Danbury, Connecticut. I retired from the Port St. Lucie Police Department. I spent 11 years on a SWAT team. I was a SWAT team leader and sniper. I've had the last 3 years the fortunate ability to lead two police agencies in college university settings in the West, in Colorado and California. I've trained for and prepared for the worst things that could happen in school environments before these things started happening in school environments. I've had an opportunity to retire from law enforcement and tried that hat on, and it didn't fit too well. I sat on my couch with my wife and watched one of the last mass shootings and said, there's got to be something that we can do. I felt a need to do something, in addition to the 2 decades of service. When this opportunity presented itself, that the county of Sarasota had the vision to create its own police force whose sole intent and purpose is to protect our children. That's our only job. That's our only job. We can be focused on that one skill set to provide a level of safety to our students to learn and our teachers to teach in an environment that's safe. I couldn't think of any more noble cause. When there was an opportunity to build a police department from the ground up, I understood the Herculean task that was going to be at hand in the long hours that were ahead of me, but I embraced the challenge because the cause is too great. That it's the nobility of protecting our children is just too great of a cause not to get involved with.
When people hear schools, they don't automatically think police. Those are not words that people usually
Sure.
put together. Talk a little bit just about how that works for people that still can't wrap their heads around the fact that those two words are next to each other.
I wish I was out of work. I really do. I wish you didn't need police in schools. The problem is, we've seen a wave of mass casualty incidents, active shooter incidents, where they've come more frequent in duration and more intense in their intensity. And until such time that we figure out as a nation, as a society, how to get to the deep root of why that's happening, we have to protect our most vulnerable. I look at this as a three-pronged effort. We have a police department. Our police department, I couldn't hand select a better group of men and women. They are the who's who of law enforcement from around this nation. We have cops from Chicago, from NYPD, from Massachusetts State Police, from Baltimore, from Florida, from sheriff's offices in Florida. And they've all joined on with a passionate desire to not let this happen here. That's their passion. The average experience of the officers we're bringing in the door is 21 years. We have a 37% diverse workforce, truly representative of the community we're charged policing. This is a fantastic organization in terms of its police department. On the safety side of our establishment, we are spending upwards of $25 million to harden our targets. We're creating perimeter fences. We have a 365, 24-hour-a-day staff facility that has 3,000 camera feeds from around our district. We're adding 2,000 more before the start of the school year. Card access, badge access, IDs. We're hardening our lobbies. You can't enter our schools until you've been checked to see if you're a sexual predator. You can't enter our schools to see unless you've been cleared to make sure you're not a wanted person. Our lobbies have bullet-resistant glass in it. There are many, many efforts on the technology side that are making it a safer environment. And the most important piece of this, we can be a great police department, we can harden our structure. We are not 100% foolproof. We are nothing if we don't address the mental health issues that cause this to happen. We need to stop the bullying from happening. We need to provide the services to support the victims of bullying. We need to be able to provide a service to a young adult or child in crisis before they become a crisis incident. Working with our mental health, our school psychologists, our school counselors, our school psychologists is the only way to do this. And this is a purely relationship type of building initiative where our SROs are hopefully going to earn the trust of our students, our staff, and our community. And once we have their trust, then we will be someone that they can turn to and share their problems with. The See It, Say It program only works if we have your trust. So we want you to tell us. We want you to tell us when there's a crime. We want you to tell us when you've been picked on or bullied or oppressed in any way. Our goal is to prevent the crisis from happening, and that's it.
Yeah, let's go back to something you said earlier.
Sure.
You said this opportunity came up and it was one that you couldn't pass up,
Sure.
A department solely looking at protecting school children.
Okay.
A lot of parents have said things like, well, Sarasota is not the place to be experimenting with something new.
Okay.
What would you say to people like that?
There is a legislative initiative as a result of the tragedy that we experienced here in Florida. Our legislature said we don't want this to happen here and funded initiatives. So what we're doing here is not anything different than any county in the state of Florida is doing. Every county has the same initiative to provide a school resource officer or some type of guardian for every school. We are doing it in a purely grassroots movement to establish an entity whose sole purpose is for this cause. We don't do other things. We don't have drug units. We don't have traffic units. We are purely here to protect our students. If anybody focuses on one thing, they're going to get good at one thing. If you're a generalist, you'll be good at a lot of things, but we're going to be as good as we can at the one thing we're charged to do. We're required to, by law, do what we're doing, and we're doing it in a way to do the best we can to prevent and avert a tragedy from happening in this county. And if we do this right, and if all these components come together in the right way, it's experimental per se right now because it's change, and sometimes change is not always embraced, it's resisted. We hope to make a national model of what we do here. So when other states have figured out what Florida did, and Texas for that matter, they followed suit. There's 48 other states that haven't figured this out yet of how to fund these initiatives or what they want to do to protect their children. We're doing it first, and hopefully we're doing it best.
You mentioned the people that you've hired have an average of 21 years experience. These aren't people fresh out of the academy.
Sure.
I think when people look at regular sheriff's departments, police departments, they see someone get hired with any kind of experience. They still go through that department's academy.
Absolutely.
Usually a couple months of training,
Sure.
usually a couple months with an experienced officer. You follow them around before you're even by yourself.
Absolutely.
This is gonna have armed law enforcement people in schools next month. This is only 4 weeks of training.
Sure.
What parents, I think, rightfully have some concerns about that fact. What are you saying to kind of ease their minds?
I can tell you this, we are onboarding our first officers and sergeants as we speak. On Monday, our first hires are slated for crisis intervention training, so they're going to receive the specialized training to address the mental health issues that I just talked about. Some of our officers are, most all of our officers are instructors of all these different disciplines that we teach our young academy recruits out of the academy. Most all of the people that we have are not just in need of field training programs, but they are field training instructors. They're field training supervisors. So we will provide a condensed, intensive month of law enforcement training to include all of the normal disciplines from driving to shooting to active shooter training to crisis intervention, and we're going to do it at an accelerated rate because we have the skill level that we're bringing on board at the rate that we're bringing it on board with.
So for the other new hires, obviously you're going to be ramping this up even more over the next few years. I'm
Sure.
assuming you're eventually going to get some people who are fresh out of the academy. are those people going to go through a more intensive training process now, or is that still too far down the road to talk about?
No, we right now, we are, our first year, we're covering 21 K through 5s. So we're staffing 21 schools with 24 officers. So we'll have 3 units that are floaters, backfill, backup, for lack of better words, 3 supervisors with myself. Next year, which is actually in our current fiscal year as of July 1, we are doubling those numbers, bringing another 24 officers and another 3 supervisors onto our agency to include a criminal investigations division. Right now we've got civilian crime analysts who are, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention this piece of it, but are actually monitoring social media and listening to what our children are saying and posting. And we'll have an investigative wing that will be able to vet those things out. And if someone is crying for help, that we reach out to them and give them the help that they're asking for.
You know, and that brings up, you know, the point of just coverage area. This is different. I mean, you've got, like you said, 21 different campuses
Sure.
that you're going to be patrolling, and all of the area in between is not part of your coverage area. You know, that's the sheriff's office, those are the police departments. You know, how does just jurisdictionally this work? Because this is a pretty massive
Sure.
operation with complicated jurisdiction lines. So just kind of talk
Absolutely.
about how, as much as you can, about how that works.
The Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act actually defined jurisdictional boundaries for school police departments. We have authority on all school properties from this complex here, all of our schools, our fields and tracks and sports arenas. We have the same authority in the statute to effect arrests like any other law enforcement officer or deputy sheriff within the county, and it's defined actually as a deputy sheriff would. So if we have an incident, no different than if we're a member of the Venice Police Department that has actually a geographic boundary, our geographic boundaries are sprinkled throughout the entire county. So we do have the same jurisdictional boundaries as a municipality. There's just many more pieces of them in different places.
Yeah, so this is something we're going to have a good relationship with the other jurisdictions
Without a
that you're
doubt.
in the areas with. You know, have you started meeting with the chiefs and with the sheriff night to,
I have.
talk a little bit about that?
I've had 4 successive meetings over the last 3 weeks with members of our chiefs, our local municipal chiefs, our state and local governments, to include our state attorney and our chief state attorney. I've met with our sheriff, have a great working relationship with the sheriff. He invited me to his command staff meeting, and they have wholeheartedly embraced what we're doing to allow us to be successful. There's areas within this department and the uptick of bringing it on board that the sheriff has volunteered knowledge that we didn't think of. The sheriff is willing to provide us dispatch services, so we who don't have our own dispatch facility have the ability to communicate with other law enforcement agencies. This is a collaborative effort. No agency, not ours, not anywhere can do it alone. And law enforcement, my experience with law enforcement, both as a municipal officer and as a chief of police and as a SWAT team member, have worked collaboratively throughout my entire career with members of other law enforcement. I've said this a few times. It doesn't matter where you come from, what shape your badge is, what color your uniform are. Cops are cops, and when push comes to shove, we're here to keep everybody safe and the community at large. So there's politics, there's white noise, and it's exactly that. It's white noise. It does not deter us from our mission, and our mission is shared. Our partners with Venice, Sarasota, Northport, and the Sarasota County Sheriffs are very much united.
All right, yeah, talk a little bit about, sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second.
Good, I thought it was a hard one.
This is something where I think people are going to have to get used to this in the
No doubt.
community. Parents are going to have to get used to this in the community. What kind of outreach are you going to plan for, students and for parents to be able to get to meet the people who are going to be in the schools protecting them? And you look at the
Sure.
resource officers now, I've spent a lot of time with a couple of them.
Mhm.
They have great relationships
Absolutely.
with not just the schools, but the communities at large.
Absolutely.
How do you plan on fostering those relationships?
Quite simply, in the very initial onset, there's a mammoth effort of our organization to immerse us into the school's culture and the school's community. We plan to be at parent-teacher initiations and orientations. We plan to be at the schools and be a visible presence and an approachable presence. We plan to immerse ourselves into all the different sporting events and activities of all of the extracurricular sporting teams. I have band kids. My kids are immersed in the culture of their schools. I plan to be a band dad for this entire county. And that's what we do. I volunteer in the school district where my kids came from, and I will do this on a full-time basis and on a volunteer basis.
Yeah, and that's also something you mentioned earlier, the bullying aspect. I know the sheriff's office and at least Sarasota police, they do go into the classrooms individually. They teach anti-bullying initiatives. A couple of them coach sports.
Sure.
Is this going to be something that
Absolutely.
these people take up?
When we vetted out the men and women that we were hiring, one of the attributes we were looking for is, what is your experience working with youth, children? We're looking for people that have experience with sporting events, with being a parent, having kids in the schools. Many of our members are people that live and chose to reside in Sarasota County, or have chose to relocate and live in Sarasota County and want to be part of preventing this from happening here. They are passionate, they are equally engaging as any SRO will be or should be, and the level of exceptional customer service that we will provide, give us time to earn your trust. That's what I ask.
All right, anything else that you want parents to know or that you want students to know before doors open next month?
I'll let you know this, my door is open all the time. If anybody wants to speak to me at any level, a parent, a student, a member of the community, feel free. I am not the smartest person in the room. I don't ever want to be. And if someone has an idea for us, a thought or a method of how we can do it better, I'm willing to listen. And if somewhere along the line we don't do it right, I want to fix that. So please let me know. I tell you this, as a parent, as a father, and as my kids have shared with me, I know what you think, I know how you feel. I want to restore a time and place to a moment that you never thought about this as a risk. I want you to be able to go to school and enjoy school, learn in a safe environment, teach like there's nothing going on. And if we do our job right, that's how it's going to feel.
All right, great. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you. Thank you for what you do.